Hello, everybody. I'm Greg Watkins, and this is Worth Point Chats with Harry Rinker, the March 8th, 2006 edition. And without further ado, here's Harry.
Hey, and I'm great to be back here, back in Kentwood after last week at Altamont Springs. I don't know whether I should say it's great to be back in Michigan, but it's like 60 outside in Michigan, too. Those were some of the temperatures I was having in Florida, so it's good to be home here. By the way, we want to welcome those people that are watching this live on YouTube. We are going to try to do these chats every week on Tuesday at 2 o'clock as best we can. Now, sometimes my schedule isn't going to allow that. But we've already started to feature this week. We got live chat up. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah. So if you are watching through YouTube live, you can chat us questions or comments, and if I'm paying attention and I notice them, we'll bring up those questions and comments. But if you're watching this in an archive, then you'll just have to hold on to your questions and email them to us.
Well, now, wait a minute. We're actually going to show them a slide a little bit later on, indicating how they can do that, right? I mean, we're going to provide them with a way to send us pictures and so forth, because besides having me chat away about what's going on out there in the trade and things that are happening to me, I'm also going to take the opportunity to do some of this during the week. We have a couple of objects in the queue, but that aside, we always want to be responsive to our members. Please try to make the objects in focus, if at all possible, and details are important, including marks and so forth. Well, yeah, I think I mentioned last week I was antiquing in Winter Park, Florida, something I don't normally do but did. And one of the things is when I went in the antique shop, I found a Jacquard coverlet. Jacquards are those old looms that had like IBM punch cards that the weaver could follow a pattern and didn't have to count everything that he did. But I found one that was made for Susanna Rinker. And I had to buy it. I mean, come on, how many times you go out there and find something with your name on it? Now, Watkins, you got a real shot, but with a name like Rinker, come on, man. It's a bit of a challenge. I knew it wasn't my immediate family, and I thought it was one of the Virginia Rinkers. Well, the internet's wonderful for so much of this stuff. I'm at a point now in my collecting career where I like things with names attached to them, because that way I can do some research work and try to find out who was the original owner of an object. And it's a story really that captivates me anymore as much as the object itself. Well, I went to findthegrave.com, a wonderful genealogy site, by the way. And since this coverlet was made in Champaign County, Ohio, I made the mistake of typing in Champaign, Illinois at first, but it was made in Champaign County, Ohio. I actually found everything. I found who it was made for. Suzanne Rinker married Benjamin Rinker. He is from the Virginia side of the family. There's a whole bunch of rebel Rinkers down there in the Shenandoah Valley, and then there's us northern Rinkers in Pennsylvania. But they apparently moved up into the Ohio Valley. They had 3 children, and all of a sudden, what was just a coverlet with a name on it suddenly became real to me. And so, thanks to Find a Grave, I found out something about her parents. I found out about her siblings. Now I'm going to go on an interesting project. I'm going to try to trace her generations forward and find out what schmuck sold the coverlet. put it in the marketplace. Well, either that or find some relative that wants it back really badly and maybe get my money back now that I played with it.
So, what generation was Susanna? When was she alive?
She was in the latter part of the middle to the last part of the 19th century. They were born early on. The coverlet was done in 1858. And she lived to 1890, which was really quite a nice lifespan for that period of time. And so it must, as so often happens in these things, generations come and go. People don't understand the people involved. wasn't successful in finding any pictures of her. You know, I didn't get on Ancestry.com or one of the other websites. But, you know, 1890, that's late enough that maybe there's a photographer out there. I have to see if I can find some family people. Now, the Virginia Rinkers seem to care a lot more about the Rinkers than the Pennsylvania Rinkers do. So maybe I can get some genealogy people down there and find out what's going on. But it's just fun. Imagine the whole delight of putting a face to the owner of the coverlet. And it was interesting because she was married at the time. And what was neat about the weaver, his name was John Wirick, W-I-R-I-C-K. There are very few coverlets known by him. Ohio weaver, and his son was a weaver. There is one coverlet that survives that's in the Ohio Historical Society. There, you know, almost every state now has a group that documents coverlets and quilts as part of a historical project. There was one in there, but from a different location. There were no quilts labeled St. Paris, Champaign County, which is obviously where he was when he was weaving this, which just, of course, happens to be right down the road from where the Rinkers lived. So, you know, he must have done that. Now, most coverlet weavers at the time of Jacquard, coverlet weavers weren't weaving full time. They would take orders, you know, for coverlets. And then what would happen is that they would, when they get 10 or 12 coverlet orders, then they'd set up their loom. Now, the reason for that is it takes a long time to string a loom. It may take 3 to 4 days. It may take a couple hours to do a coverlet. So you want to string that loom up so you can knock out a dozen or so coverlets at the time. And what's fun about them is that they normally set it up to do about 10 to 12, but they may only have 6 orders. So the last block that they do, there's no title block. There's no block with the name of the person it's done for. It's just the name of the weaver, and there's a blank spot where the name of the person it was woven for would be. And they would take those to the country store and sell them at the country store. And so that's why when you're out hunting Jacquard coverlets, you sometimes find title blocks with the name of the weaver in it and the location of the weaver, and the date, but not the name of the person for whom it's woven. So it's all kind of fun. It also reminded me, back when I was the director of the Historical Society of York County back in 1972 to 76, John Heisey was the librarian there when I first started. And he did an extensive study of coverlet weavers and wrote a book, which is now currently in Atlanta, I might add, instead of my library here. But I went up on the internet and I found that some people had done a revised version of it, added more information. And so, of course, I had to buy it. You know, this is getting very costly for me. I'm buying back my library again. I may have to come down to Will and just say, can I have a couple books back? But no, all kidding aside. So I got another copy of that. So now I'm on a coverlet research kick again. But it's fun to this. And now you come to this rather interesting question, too. Here I have this coverlet with the date of the weaver and the location. And there was only I could only find about 3 lines about his bio on the net. So now I've got to take a picture of that and get it out to the Ohio people so they have a record of it. And this is what happens with collectors. I think collectors are not aware of how much work is being done on the net and by historical sites to document stuff. And if you have a piece that relates to one of these projects, take photographs and send it to them so they can at least, you know, add it to their database. I mean, this database business is a big business these days. Well, anyway.
So,
yeah.
Didn't you say that?
What's that, Greg?
I said, when you bought that coverlet, didn't you say that there were more antique store?
Well, there was some damage to it. I mean, I didn't pay a lot of money. There were other coverlets there, but they didn't interest me. You know, there were a couple of woven coverlets there that didn't have title blocks on it that were done on a regular loom, but they never put title blocks in those. And even though it was probably as old as that, all 3 of them that were laying there may have come out of the same hoard. The problem is I was only interested in the one with a name, and had it not said Rinker on it, I probably wouldn't have bought it anyway. But
okay, so the Ohio folks may not be interested in the others that are still there.
No. They would have had title. But this is another thing too that I have to remind myself is that when I'm out in the field and I see stuff like that at appraisal clinics and so forth. In fact, I'm off to Reading this weekend, Reading, Pennsylvania. I'm doing a 3-day appraisal clinic at the Southeast Pennsylvania Home and Garden Show in Reading. I see stuff coming through, and I keep thinking, I would like a picture of this, and I forget I've got my cell phone there. And I've got to, no. Well, this digital age, I mean, come on, I'm an old timer, an old fart here. I resist this stuff. So, but the thing about it is that I've got to really start taking pictures of some of the stuff I see, only because I want to do more research work about. I told you, I think I may have mentioned when I was down at Winter Park Friday a week ago, a woman came in with this really neat lighter watch. It was a watch. I'm sorry, a watch that had a kind of frame around it. You could hang it on the chain, but on the back was a picture of the Graf Zeppelin, and then a set of dates and from and to was a presentation watch. Well, dumb me, I didn't take a picture on the back of it, figuring, well, I know what it is, and blah, 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 blah. Well, so I come home, of course, and I turn on the computer, and it's fun to research this stuff. And I find out that 1929, the Graf Zeppelin made a trip around the world. And so what must have happened is that this person must have been on one leg of that trip, either the cross-American leg or the cross-Atlantic leg or whatever leg he was on, and got this presentation. But now, if I would have only taken a picture of it, I'd had the names, I could have done some research work, I could have had a ton of fun with it. And so I've got to remind myself, and so now I'm much more cognizant, and in the future when I see weird, strange things out there, why I'm going to take some pictures of them and see what I can find out about it. Speaking of pictures, by the way, and again, I want to remind anybody that's watching live, we've got the chat feature activated. If you have a question that you'd like to ask me or some comment or concern, just type it in the chat message and Greg will take a look at it and relay it on it. But speaking of pictures, we have a picture of a kind of a interesting thing. I got a picture of a teapot in from somebody. I offer a service where people can send me images and then pay me for an appraisal. And here came the teapot. And this was one of those wonderful things, is it was in the family, and she wanted to know, she didn't know anything about it. Well, she knew it was probably Chinese or Japanese, didn't know a lot about it. And so, and most important, she was concerned about when it was made. And this is one of the things you have to be very careful about with Chinese and Japanese ceramics. The marks on the bottom may be right, but more often than not, they're wrong. They may be later copies. So we'll get back to the mark in a minute. Let's go back to the teapot. And now, you look at this teapot, and one of the things when I teach authenticating is I tell my students, you've got to learn about shape and form. You've got to be able to look at an object, and an alarm bell has to go off and say, oh, that's that's a great picture to do this. You've got to be able to say, can I look at this and can I date it? Well, this teapot was fun because instead of it just having this square body, it had these diamond-shaped pieces on each of the four sides, which added to it. But the thing was the handle. Now, if you're used to seeing teapots like this, the handle is a dead giveaway. You're looking at the period between the two wars, or maybe the period immediately after the war, 1920s or 30s. So, we had that, and I kind of had that impression, and this person did what we would ask of anybody that's sending us information that they'd like us to talk about it. An object, send as many pictures as possible because that helps. Now, let's go back to the mark. Now, one of the things is that we don't have a lot of information about Chinese and Japanese marks here in the U.S. I mean, the literature is terrible. We've got great mark books on U.S. pottery marks. We've got great mark books on European ceramics, English, and German. Very little on the French, unfortunately. But there is a website I discovered in looking at this, Gothenburg.com, Gothenburg.com, Gothenburg.com. Eric Nielsen, a Danish or Swedish, I can't remember, fellow, has put this site together. And what makes this site so wonderful is not only does he have all the marks up there, but he is aware that these marks, even though they supposedly date back to a much earlier period, were heavily copied in the 20th century and even later. And he is constantly pointing out to people that you can't trust the mark. You got to look at the shape and the form and the whatever. Well, this mark is a mark from a period of the late 19th, early 20th century. But when you find the mark on the site, it says, but very common in the 20s and 30s and later. And so now you've got confirmation that even though the mark seems to be an older mark, it really is probably a copy done in the 1920s. And that's when the teapot comes back on. Now let's put the teapot back up again. Now the question is, who's going to collect this? Well, the Japanese or Chinese aren't going to collect it because it's not a real high-end piece from them. But it's blue. And in the antiques and collectibles trade, like it or not, we sell by color. Blue, red, yellow, green, brown, black, white. Blue sells better than anybody else. And this is one neat little blue teapot. And not just that, it's a wonderful shape and form. Now, when I first came into the trade and I did the first editions of Warman's Antiques and their prices, I took over at the 16th. We had categories on cups and saucers, watch pitchers and bowls, and teapots. Well, we don't have many shape collectors out there, but there's still enough teapot collectors. And I have to tell you, if I was a teapot collector and someone said to me, you can have this teapot for 45 to 50 bucks, I'd be a buyer in a heartbeat. I don't think its market value is much above $60 to $75, but it's the quality of the workmanship and the shape and the time period and the condition of the handle, which is fabulous. I think justifies the $50 plus to $75 plus a range along with it. The other thing too, a little tip here, when you have something like this bamboo handle that's fiber, and this is especially true for wicker, but it's true for a lot of reed baskets and so forth. If you don't take care of it, that handle is going to dry out. And so what you want to do is the next time you get done using a Windex bottle, or one of those bottles with a squeezed top on it, wash it out thoroughly. And then about once a year, lightly, don't stick it in a thing of water and don't spray it till water drips down over it, but lightly spray the bamboo in there to keep moisture in the fiber, and that way the handle won't split. And I saw a tea cart a couple of weeks ago at the appraisal in Winter Park, that wonderful little bamboo tea cart from about the 19 teens or 20s. And unfortunately, nobody did that, and the whole front of the wicker had cracked and created a real problem. And, once it happens, it happens. But fun little teapot. It's great to talk about it, and so much to learn from all of this type of stuff. Also nice to see that the lid matches. And, oh, yeah, here we go. If you'd like to submit an item for me to identify or evaluate, send your photographs and everything else you know about the item. And by the way, that everything else you know about the item is really important. Tell us how you acquired it, what you paid for it if you bought it, what's the provenance, and when you send photographs, please put a measure in there. Now, the person that sent me these teapot photographs unfortunately didn't put a measuring device in there. Use a quarter, a dollar bill, send a dollar bill. No, send $10 bills. But anyway, no, get some kind of measure in there so we know, because if you go back to the original picture, the picture of the teapot as a whole, now you see it on a table in respect to some stem glasses, and you can see it's not a 4 or 5 inch tea. It's a pretty good size teapot. And so there again, size also will add a little bit to the value. But, the only way we know what size this teapot is because it's in a series of relationships to other things. Well, moving away from this, we talked in the course of this about the fact that we have a hard time finding information about European materials. Now, I know, Greg, you're working on some additional mark stuff in silver, and I keep sending you guys emails. Did you ever get a copy of Tardy, the Tardy Guide to International Marks of silver?
I believe that we are looking for it. Well, I personally haven't found it yet, but who knows if the other folks here at the company.
Well, there's not one in the library, I don't think, but it's on the net. And one of the things is that when you have books, now again, maybe we ought to just talk about this book for a second before we get to the book I really want to talk about, and that is one of the best guides to international marks and silver was done by a gentleman named Tardy, T-A-R-D-Y, I guess in the 70s or 80s, published abroad. It got over, a few copies got over to the States. If you find them in the States, they're on the used book market over here for 60 to as much as 125 bucks. But because we're global, if you get on the internet and get Amazon or eBay in Europe, you could find them for about 30, 40 bucks. and it's still the best buy out there. I mean, there's a much bigger volume that's been done for $250, but man, this thing is a little pocket companion and a biggie. But I get really concerned about that. And I want to talk about a new book that just came on the marketplace, because I have to say, this is the book we've all been waiting for. It's called Magnificent 19th Century Furniture, Historicism in Germany and Central Europe. Here it is, by Rainer Haaf, Haaf. It's a translation of a book done in Germany. But I have never seen such a quality reference book to furniture in my life. It deals with furniture from the early part of the 19th century through the end of the 19th century into the 20th century. And it is just utterly fabulous. You know, you hear comments about Louis XIV and Louis XV and Louis XVI styles. And if you look at the American furniture, it's so styleless that, except for the reproduction pieces that thought they were copying it, you don't even have a decent understanding of what it is. But when you look at this book, it is the finest collection of furniture I have ever seen, whether it's Italian Renaissance or Louis XVI style or you name it. But the strength of this book is it also shows the furniture in use. It shows pictures of people from the era. The tie-ins are just nothing short of fantastic. It's published by Schiffer Publishing, and it's a translation. Schiffer Publishing, really, I have to tell you, deserves a big, strong pat in the back, because it is starting to find really good reference books and translating them. And this one covers German, Danube, Monarchy, and Switzerland furniture, Italian furniture, Holland furniture, French furniture. Now, what a lot of Americans don't understand is we look to England so much for the ancestry of our furniture design that we don't realize the English had to look somewhere themselves, and they looked at Italy and France. But what's really neat about this book is the last section is called International Furniture and Exotica, and it has Russian malachite furniture, porcelain style furniture, chinoiserie and Japanese style furniture, Bugatti furniture, grotto furniture, furniture with hunting motifs, antler furniture, bear furniture. Who doesn't need furniture made out of bear parts? But no, these were carved bear parts. Naturalist furniture. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. The quality of the artwork is positively exquisite. If you love furniture and you want an insight into the 19th century styles that were part of Victorian furniture and which worked their way over to America largely through import stuff, even today in container loads, this is a book that's a must for the library. And I think Peter Schiffer and all the Schiffers that are involved with Schiffer Publishing, well, Peter Schiffer Jr., his father's passed away, who I know, deserve a pat on the back for getting this book translated and getting it into the literature vocabulary over here. By the way, that's an interesting thing, Greg. You know, I went back over my budgets at Rinker Enterprises back when I was doing this, looking at what I was spending a year on reference books, and it was over $5,000 most years. You know,
wow.
When people you know come to WorthPoint and other subscription sites and they want, you know, $20 a month or $35 a month or something, and they say, oh, that's a lot of money. Do me a favor. If you could save you buying all those reference books, it's more than it's a great bargain. And you're starting to put some reference books up on WorthPoint.
We've got more than 1,000 books on the digital library right now, and we have several more in the queue. It's just a matter of getting the rights and then technically getting the pages on the site.
I'm working.
What's good about the digital library is that you can search by keyword just like anything else on the site, and it will tell you what book that keyword is in, and it'll even take you to that page. So you don't have to thumb around. You don't have to open a digital book and just flip through. If you're searching for you know, a specific kind of Hot Wheel, we have 5 or 6 Hot Wheel books. And if you're looking for the school bus, then you can find that page with the description and the photograph just with just a keyword search.
Yeah, you know, it's funny that we're working on it. I'm working with you too. I've made a number of suggestions, And I'm hoping to get down to Atlanta maybe spring, summer, to talk to you and go over the library you have down there to identify a couple of key books that I think should be up there. But we live in a digital age. I mean, there's no question about it. And the digital age is back, and it's important. And more and more people are going up there. Again, no matter how much you think is up on the net, though, there's still a need for books. Just like that one we were talking about, the Haff book, and that's Haaff, Magnificent 19th Century Furniture. You still need those books and those pictures. It'll be a while before we get all that stuff up on the net. But anyway, so
Sure.
we're doing that. I want to mention that the information for my Institute for the Study of Antiques and Collectibles is up on my website, harryrinker.com, and we're looking forward to that. We're doing 3 courses this summer, right there, at seminars, July 11th through the 16th. And I have to tell you, I'm excited about these 3 courses. The first one is called Researching Antiques and Collectibles. Last year, we did a course on authenticating antiques and collectibles and talked about all the things you needed to do to learn to authenticate pieces. And then it occurred to me that, that's fine, but you need to know where to start from the beginning. What happens if you have a piece of glass and know nothing else? Well, before you can authenticate it, you got to know at least partially what you're looking at. So I've designed a really intense 2-day course looking at all the major collecting categories: furniture, glass, ceramics, metals, silver, precious metals, base metals, all these kinds of things. And even a section on jewelry where we can get people heading in the right directions and through that. Then we're doing a course called Painting, Watercolor, and Prints. The emphasis is going to be on researching paintings, identifying the different styles, knowing when you're looking at a copy, a later copy or something, but also emphasizing the stuff that's generally found in houses and homes as opposed to museums. We're not talking about the $1 million stuff here. We're talking about the stuff under $2,500. And the final seminar, which I don't care whether anybody comes to or not, I'm going to run it anyway, is called Toys, Games, and Puzzles, because I love toys, games, and puzzles. So we're having a good time, and we'll look forward to that. I want to thank Greg for putting that up on the list. And I know WorthPoint subscribers will be getting notices about the seminar, so we hope to see many of you there. Well, we want to again remind our viewers here, as some of you may be watching it live, we didn't get any chit chats today, but as we get to this, we're expecting people to come on to the chat feature and be able to ask us and text us some questions about what's going on out there in the trade. We certainly want to put that image up again about how people can send us photographs, if you would, Greg. If you have an object you'd like us to talk about here on WorthPoint's Chats with Harry, you can send it to, image on the screen. Yes, here you are, community@worthpoint.com. We'll be glad to have you do that as well. WorthPoint will be developing a page where you can go up and find these back chats. This is number 3 in the series. Is that, 3 in the series. Is that right, Greg?
Yes, that's right.
Yeah, number 3 in the series. And we hope to be doing these every week, at least as much as my schedule can accommodate. And also at Tuesday afternoons at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, 1 Central, noon Mountain, and 11 o'clock in the morning Pacific Time. When we get sophisticated enough, we are going to try to get some authors to come on board and chat with us. But, right now we're just happy we're able to do this. Anyway, that's it for this week.
Yeah, we're getting our technology working. There's a lot of things that we have yet to learn about this program, but I'm at least I've figured out how to get these little charts up and the screenshots, and we can get the photos that you want to talk about, Harry. So I think it's going pretty well.
Yes, and we're going to be sharing a lot of information. Some of my observations of what's going on out there in the marketplace. Books that I've acquired. I just ordered a really interesting book. We'll talk about in a couple of weeks when it shows up on Raj silver, not Rah silver, but Victorian silver from the British Raj period, which I'm excited about.
That sounds interesting.
Yes, well, you know what, and again, drop us a note. What would you like us to talk about? That's important. So All right, Greg, now just make sure you press the right button to discontinue this because last time we didn't. And if you want a little
we had hot
the end of last week's chat.
mic action last time. So I'm gonna put up the email address again, and we'll say goodbye for this week.
Okie doke.
All right, bye, Harry.
All right, Greg.